Hey, good evening, folks. It's Bob Gums with the Concerned Forum. Uh, and let me say at the beginning, please, when you view this, give me a check mark. And also, your comments are welcome, either pro or negative, either way. Uh, there's one thing I've been wanting to speak on. Now, being into this whole YouTube podcast thing, I've been seeing a lot, right? And I find one thing I find disturbing. I find a lot of Black Americans, you know, people are saying like you have the podcast, right? And they'll say, Latinos are young. Where are the Black folks? Why are they not helping? And also, I find that with a lot of working class whites, their podcasts, and they're saying, oh, where are the Black people? Why are they not out there, struggling? Well, I think I need to give my opinion on this. Uh, Look, I don't know who wants to hear this. I really don't care. Um, I believe in speaking the truth. Well, Black Americans have been struggling in this country since 1619. So this idea that asking where are Black folks in the struggle, we've always been there. And before I go any further, I don't know how many of you folks know this. I'm in Uganda now. I got over here this past June. I caught myself trying to start a pod thing over here. And I also got married, to be honest about it. But I'm, still registered to vote in the Bronx, right? Um, I haven't changed. Still an American citizen, blah, blah, blah. So I just want to get that out of the way. I am shocked because of the fact that when I left in June, I had no idea. I mean, in all honesty, I knew that this whole bullshit that Trump is doing, I knew it was coming. But I was of the belief that it would be like a year from now, right around the election next year or the year after. But they're moving fast, which tells me that there's more than just Donald Trump behind this. I think that if anything happens to our government, I think you need to look at people like Steve Bannon, for example, who I'm a former Navy guy, just like he is, and I think that he is a traitor to the uniform. But I'm not going to dwell on that right now. What I'm talking about is this idea that somehow Black Americans have left the field. Uh, Let me see if I can explain that, or at least give you my perspective on that. And I'll be straight up. The gentleman that I'm supporting for Congress in my district, the 15th district in the Bronx, um, is a Latino gentleman. I myself am the son of a Dominican father who was born in the United States Virgin Islands, but his father was a Dominican. And my dad did spend quite a number of his formative years after his mother unfortunately died in the Dominican Republic. So I just wanted to put the groundwork out there. Most of my people on my father's side are Spanish speaking. So, let's get that out the way. I think you have many Black Americans who are hurt because of the fact that a large amount of Latinos, especially Cubans, Venezuelans, some Colombians, uh, basically decided that they were going to be, to show that they were wanting to be inclusive, they said, well, we're going to vote Republican. And unfortunately for them, you see where that got them. Some of the biggest Trump supporters, especially in the red states, the southern states, have been deported. Okay, so that should show how much consideration Donald Trump and the MAGA Republican Party have for Latino people, especially dark Latino people, right? And believe me, I'm more aware than Bill Maher of the various cultural differences between Mexican as opposed to Guatemalan, as opposed to Dominican, as opposed to Puerto Rican, as opposed to Cuban, as opposed to Venezuelan, as opposed to El Salvador. Okay? But history speaks for itself. Okay? And this MAGA Republican Party, they have absolutely no concern for you unless you are truly willing to get on your belly and crawl like our Secretary of State. So, boom, let's put that out there. Okay? Now, I'm disappointed, okay? Because I grew up in New York around Puerto Ricans, Cubans, and Dominicans, okay? And I'll be honest about it, I never really saw the difference. Maybe because my old man was from down there and my mom was from Virginia, right? And like I said, I'm born and raised in New York. But I was never a thing with me. I'm sorry that they were betrayed, okay? I'm sorry that now you have ICE out there essentially acting like the slave hunters of the 1850s. That's wrong, okay? Now, when I hear Black Americans, non-Latino uh, Black Americans, or what's the proper term that they use, non-Hispanic Black Americans, talking about, oh, well, we fought for you, we voted for you, but you didn't vote for yourselves. You know what? In many cases, I believe that's true. But, and as I've gotten older, I've come to realize that in life, there is always a but, or if you want to sound academic, however, see. And, people make mistakes, right? Uh, a lot of people, unfortunately, are not really, they don't really, or not knowledgeable about some of the historical things that have been playing out here in America between the different groups. Okay? Just like you have friction between Black Americans and Asians, Black Americans and Indians, those are things that need to be ironed out. They need to be worked out. Okay? All of these people come from, great cultures. Um, but one of the downsides of America is the fact that, unfortunately, it's very good at turning people against each other and, not bringing them together for their own mutual beneficial interests. Um, they're having exceptions to that, and those are good exceptions. But one thing that Donald Trump, with his MAGA Republican Party, but especially Trump himself, has always been good at, and that is dividing people and sowing hatred amongst our ranks. I would say to Black Americans, yeah, I think that Latinos are quite well aware. I think that Cubans and Venezuelans and Colombians, especially, and Dominicans. I'm quite sure that the majority of them are quite well aware of how they were played. Okay? Um, we should, we don't have the time to, how should I say, keep harking back on that in the sense that, well, we're not going to get involved in any kind of progressive stance to stop our government from being taken over by fascists. We're not going to help because you guys voted the wrong way. I think they know that. When they see their wives and their husbands being beaten and dragged into unmarked cars by ICE, I think that they're quite aware that they made a mistake. I think they're quite aware that they were played. Okay? So I don't think that this standoffish attitude is necessary. That's the first thing. Second thing, as people found out back in the 30s, the monster will eventually gobble all of us up if we don't stand together. See, I see ICE attacking Black Americans, right? Because you have to remember, and this is something that our judges and our elected officials, they need to be held accountable for investigating. Now, I understand that there are a lot of people who are hired for ICE that have criminal records, that are functionally illiterate, right? And those are not the type of people that you need in law enforcement. In law enforcement, you need the best and the brightest. I also understand that you've been having instances across the country where masked men, some of whom are perverts, are just snatching up, kids and what have you, and trying to, make off with them, yelling, "Don't, you can't stop me because I'm ICE." And see, this is the point where it gets dangerous. Because I tell you what my nightmare is. My nightmare is that eventually, if we keep going down this road, there's going to be a situation, an encounter between these ICE thugs and a member of the legitimate police force. And there's going to be shooting, and people are going to wind up in boxes, quite frankly. Give you an example. I understand that ICE in Chicago, what these brave ICE warriors did, they attacked a Holloween parade of little kids with tear gas. Now, I want to ask anyone, and I'm not trying to go into no macho trip, but seriously, for you guys out there who are fathers, what would you do if you saw some hulking thug in a mask throwing tear gas at your little baby while they're doing a Halloween parade? How would you react? Seriously. And if you reacted in such a way as I think I might, picking up a bottle or a club and trying to bash someone's head in for attacking my child, why would you be the one that would have to be standing in front of the bar of justice? Now, I understand about federal law, okay? I think I have a little above average knowledge of law for the average, for the average guy. But I also happen to know that no federal officer has the right to function illegally. We have warrants in this country. We have the right to question people. In other words, you want to walk up to my face and ask me questions, you have to have a reason. You just don't have the right to pick up and just, slam me into the sidewalk. And I don't know what they're thinking on the Supreme Court, but that's something else that we need to take a look at. Because if you're not going to fulfill the laws of the Constitution, what the hell are you sitting up there for in your black robes? So when I hear black people talking about, oh, well, we're just going to sit back in the cut and, we're not going to take part in the struggle of our Latino brethren because of the fact that we gave them a chance last November and they screwed it up. Yeah, it was screwed up. I don't think we have to keep telling Latino people that. Okay, they know it. When they see their relatives and friends being dragged down the street and thrown in the back of cars and sent to Africa, I think they know that they made a big mistake. I think they know that they were played. Okay, that's done, right? We're in the middle of a war here. The United States government, in the person of Trump and the MAGA Republicans, have declared war on the American people. So black Americans have a choice, right? You can sit there and say, well, no, I'm not going to have no part of this, right? Or you can take a proactive stance by, organizing, going to rallies. In other words, standing up and be counted. See? So I'm tired of seeing some of these people, my people, black Americans, talking about, oh, well, we don't give a damn about the farmers and working class white folks and the Latinos, being dragged out of the country. No, you can't do that because, as we have already started to see, eventually it will come to us, right? It might be your brother out there, or your son, or your father, or your boyfriend, or your husband, or your granddad, or your grandma being slammed up against the wall, being beaten into the cement. So this idea that this ain't our fight, that's something that needs to stop 5 minutes ago. Okay, this is everyone's fight, and I'm very disappointed in a lot of the so-called Black American leadership that it is not coming out and actually saying that. We have a situation where Trump and the MAGA Republicans are trying to weaponize the military against American citizens. See? And they start off with the Latino folk, and they're working their way into the black folk, right? But believe me, they're going to be after the white working class folk. You got 40 million people that are not going to have food stamps in November. Now, I saw a dance out there talking about the military will get paid at the end of this week. Now, I'm 26 years Army, Navy, Navy Reserve, Army Reserve, National Guard, okay? My heart is with the military. But by the same token, I'm also an American citizen. And when you say, well, we're firing everybody in the federal government, and we're going to, the people who have SNAP and EBT benefits, screw them, okay? Now, a lot of those guys and gals in the military have families. They have moms and dads and sisters and brothers. Now, I wonder how they feel about the fact that the man says he's going to pay them, but their families are going to starve, right? Grandma's going to starve. Say, grandpa's going to starve. Their brothers and sisters, who probably have families of their own, are going to starve. No, don't worry. I'm not telling my military brothers and sisters that they should just, not take, take their pay. Of course they should. But they need to ask themselves, what is Trump and Vance trying to set us up for? So at this time of a shutdown, which they themselves initiated, they're going to say, okay, we're going to pay the military, but screw everybody else. Now, if I was still on active duty, you know what? I would happily take the money, right? But while I'm taking that money, I would be asking myself, what is this sucker trying to set me up for? Is he trying to buy my loyalty? Because apparently that's the impression I get from Trump and especially from Vance, that they're trying to buy the loyalty of the American military as opposed to the average American citizen. See, and that's like real dictator stuff. You know, you pay the army, but screw everybody else. And I know a lot of you guys in the military, a lot of you guys and gals are kind of like on the younger side, right? I think the older NCOs and general officers, they know where I'm coming from, okay? But a lot of you younger guys, I know it's 21, 20, you know, um, I'm sorry for the country that you have grown up in, that you have come of age in, okay? Us baby boomers, we did a piss poor job, many of us. Not all of us, but many of us. But you need to understand your democracy, okay? Because most of you guys and gals, you didn't know learn a damn thing about American history coming through school. I know, okay? You didn't. And maybe it might not be totally clear what people are trying to do with you, but you're being played, okay? Like we say back in the hood, you're being played. You're being played for a chump because they want to pay you, but let your mom and your dad and your brother and your sisters, right, starve. Because I know most of y'all come from lower working class backgrounds, okay? Like I say, I've been there, I know. And this is another reason, you know, going back to the other part of this discussion, when I see black Americans talking about, well, we have no part in this fight, that's ignorant, that's stupid, that's short-sighted, and narrow-minded, okay? What we have to understand, we have an administration now that doesn't give a damn about any of us. They don't give a shit, pardon my French. They don't give a shit about working class people. And people need to start growing up and realizing that, okay? And I don't give a damn if you're military or civilian. If you're military, you're just a tool, okay? And unfortunately, right now, especially if you're in the Navy, and especially in naval aviations, right? Or if you are a grunt, you are just a tool basically being used to kill innocent people in, in the Venezuelan area, okay? Nothing else but. They don't want you to think. They want you to forget that the basic privilege of being an American is the right to think. And what's happening is monstrous. An American military person should never be doing something that they will be ashamed of. 5 years from now, you should never have any cause to look back and feel ashamed. And that's what this Trump MAGA Republican with the Fox commentator drunk for the Secretary of Defense. And I'll be damned if I call it the Department of War, okay? If Congress wants to call it the Department of War, then let Congress get together and decide upon that name. That's not for a president to do, okay? But they're using you as a sucker right? And it's not about trying to disobey orders. You have an obligation to obey all lawful orders. But killing innocent people without proof, that ain't a lawful order. Because we, the American people, are still sitting here waiting for the goddamn proof. Meanwhile, in our name, innocent people are being slaughtered on itty bitty tiny fishing boats, right? And we really have we have no idea why. Now, I tell you quite frankly, uh, when I was on sea duty and we caught people on the boats and we were suspicious, you know what they were up to. They might be refugees, they might be drug dealers. Who knows? So you know what we used to do? It's called boarding parties, right? Boarding party. You ask yourself, what makes more sense? Over what? 1,500 miles off the coast of Florida. What makes more sense? Just, just blow up the boats? Or, command the boat to stop and board and inspect? Or is it that maybe because these are Latin American and Caribbean people, that this administration holds those kind of people's lives in such contempt that they feel they can just blast them into oblivion without going through any official protocol. Now, a lot of you, I don't know, your feelings about race, ethnicity, I don't really care. But I'm asking, are you proud to be part of that? I know I wouldn't be. And again, I flash back over to Black American because especially some of these young ladies I saw on YouTube, on these little parts talking about, oh, well, we're just sitting back and watching. We tried to tell them last November. I'm sorry, sweetheart, that's not good enough. Okay? That's what people did in Nazi Germany when they saw them coming for the Jews. And they said, nah, don't, hey, that's their thing. Don't concern me. And then they came for the Protestants, and they came for the communists, and they came for the socialists, and then they came for the democratic socialists, right? And next thing you know, there's nobody coming to help you, see? And I've already seen the pictures of ICE trying to, harass and attack Black Americans. So if you don't think that this thing about Latinos being beaten up and deported and snatched off the streets by ICE, if you don't think that this also pertains to Black Americans, then you're a damn fool. Oh, and for you working class white folks out there, yeah, after they start doing a job on us, they're going to be coming after you. I know they are, because you're human beings. And you're not going to be happy sitting up there watching your children starve or not being able to see a doctor. And eventually you're going to be out there, and then they're going to come for you. So that's why I say what's going on now is everyone's business. ICE running into residential neighborhoods, throwing tear gas and beating children, even attacking police officers. What happened to Love of the Blue? So I put this out for everyone, but especially Black Americans who are under the illusion that what ICE is doing to Latinos does not pertain to us. It's time to grow up and get real. We have a problem in this country, and that problem is called fascism. And if you don't see that, then you have a real problem. Oh, And one other thing I wanted to mention, because I'm trying to keep this one as short as I can. Now, I'm over here in Africa, and I will say uh, to my African brothers and sisters, uh, myself as a child of the diaspora, don't let Trump turn African countries into dumping grounds for their problems. Why would you do that? Why would you allow that? Africa needs to build itself up, and it's doing a good job. Because I will say this right now, Africa is the future. A lot of people might not like me saying this, but it's true. Demographically, in terms of natural resources, Africa is the future. And I don't want to see, uh, as a black man and as a child of Africa and a child of America, I don't want to see an injustice done for a third time to the African continent. Trump and the MAGA Republicans are trying to set up a fascist government in the United States. That's a problem that Americans are going to have to deal with. But African nations should not allow American problems to be dumped on their doorstep. I mean, I have no qualms about people coming back and forth between Africa and America. But don't let Trump turn any African nation into a dumping ground. I mean, those people who want to come here of their own volition, yeah, by all means, they should be welcome. But as a dumping ground for their problems, for America's problems, because of the fact that the regime that's in charge of America right now just wants to get rid of dark people, no, that's not, that's not right. Uh, I'll be following up with a lot more, but this is something I wanted to get off my chest. God bless you. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And peace.